Alexei Navalny, Russian opposition leader, has reportedly died in a Russian prison. Aurel Braun, professor of international relations and political science at the University of Toronto, is our guest this morning. Aurel, what have we learned since the news broke earlier this morning?
The report from the prison service is that he passed away, and they have all sorts of excuses. So if this is indeed true, obviously the proximate cause of his death needs to be investigated. But I think we have to look at the larger picture, and that is that this has come after numerous attempts at killing him by the regime, that this, in a sense, was murder on the installment plan. Over 3 years ago, he was poisoned with the Novichok nerve agent. He almost died. He was flown on an emergency basis to Germany, where his life was saved. He insisted on coming back to Russia. He was rearrested on trumped-up charges, moved to prison, kept in isolation, now moved to a penal colony, one of the harshest penal colonies around the Arctic. So this is not exactly a shock that over all this time, eventually his body gave way.
And that video that we were just sharing with everybody, that is Navalny's last appearance, last known appearance, and this is from that penal colony where he was sentenced to 19 years. Lots of world reaction this morning. The European Union saying that it holds the Russian regime solely responsible for Navalny's death, and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky also commenting, saying it is, quote, obvious Navalny was killed by Russian President Putin, who must be held to account. What does this mean, Aurel, for Russia?
It is likely in the long term to cause more instability. Navalny was a really powerful symbol. He was the most effective opposition leader. He was a man of extraordinary courage and a devastating sense of humor, which he wielded to great effect politically. He was therefore feared by Vladimir Putin because he was defiant. And the kind of question that was not asked by Dr. Carlson in the interview was, how is it that critics and opponents of Vladimir Putin so often wind up dead? And so this is something that happened before the election that will be held for the presidency next month. And it is something that has been going on now for quite some time now. Navalny happens to be the most prominent individual, but there are others in jail as well. Yeah. It tells us about the regime of Vladimir Putin, that this is not just about nationalism and grievances. This is basically a mafia regime.
I want to ask you on that topic. You know, part of the world reaction that we're seeing from world leaders is UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who said this morning, this is terrible news. As the fiercest advocate for Russian democracy, Alexei Navalny demonstrated incredible courage throughout his life. My thoughts are with his wife and the people of Russia, for whom this is a huge tragedy. What does this mean for supporters, Navalny supporters in Russia?
There has been extraordinary repression in Russia of all dissent. In fact, internal repression foreshadowed external aggression in the case of Russia. And this is what Western policymakers have to understand, that what happens inside Russia matters in terms of Russian behavior externally. And this is a very bad sign of how aggressive this regime is and how Mr. Putin cannot believe by anything he says domestically or any promises he makes externally. And as long as the Putin regime is in power in Russia, that regime is a terrible tragedy for the people of Russia, and it is a constant danger for the rest of the world.
One last question for you, Aurel. You know, Russia, of course, is in the middle of a war. I'm curious around the timing. If he was killed, why now?
Even if this wasn't deliberate, it was going to happen because his body had been so weakened. There had been so many attempts. Having been put in this kind of colony, it should not be surprising that he died. Now, any independent investigation may reveal that something happened just now and just before the election. But even if that is not the case, I think this was, again, at the very least, murder on the installment plan.
Aurel, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. Lots more information to come, including we should add that apparently Navalny's lawyer is on his way to that penal colony to try and learn more information. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.